I began communicating with the spirit of our unborn child in July of last year. What's up, beautiful beings? Welcome to another episode of the podcast. It's just me today, little solo episode. I believe the last time I did a solo episode was a few years ago. And I believe, if I'm not wrong, that it was sharing with you guys all about my experience on Dieta. And it was a pretty wild one. If you haven't heard that episode, it's worth a listen. Some definitely big laughs in there on that wild journey. And it will kind of put what I'm about to share in more context, I think, but it's not necessary. If you want to start here with me. But yeah, essentially that was October of 2021. We're now in February of 2024. So 3 years ago. Right around that time, I had also just started doing like really intense blood work. I did blood, stool, saliva, urine, all the tests with a functional medicine doctor, Dr. Mark Hyman, who I've had on the podcast. Started getting just like really prepped and more serious about my physical health, just kind of out of curiosity, wanting to optimize, and also was at that time starting to think about, okay, looking forward to, potentially having kids. So then that was probably in the middle of 2021, did all that. Fast forward to October, I go on Dieta in the jungle, I give the full scoop on that, but essentially I set the intention to show me, teach me, tell me what I need to see to be the best mother that I can be. And I'm going to be honest, I thought that was going to be a kind of light intention. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking, but I thought it would be like not a brutal intention. That has spurred me, that single decision to set that intention at Dieta has spurred me into the most intense healing period of my life. And I've been doing pretty deep healing work for the last 15 years. The last 3 years, particularly last year, were a massive deep dive into healing some of the deepest trauma in my system. So what I don't know if I shared in that episode is that I'm pretty sure I shared that the first night I didn't really have anything happen. I just fell asleep. The one thing that happened, I had like a violent intrusive thought for the first time ever. I'd never experienced that in my life during ceremony. And it didn't feel like a vision, like what you have in psychedelics. It just felt like an intrusive thought. And I was like, that's weird. Fell back asleep. Those violent intrusive thoughts actually continued for 1.5 years post that Dieta. Now, for about 6 months post Dieta, I didn't actually tell anyone that I was experiencing that. And here's the interesting thing. I didn't even do that consciously. It was totally subconscious. I didn't even realize. It's like that seeking help wasn't even an option. And I definitely have wounding from having the feeling of what's the point in making a fuss of something? No one's coming to help me. So I'm going to have to figure this out myself. Like that's part of my core wounding. So makes sense. And eventually I was like, I need help. I tried everything. I tried Tonglen, which is when you suck, darkness back into the body, gargle it in the throat, turn it to nectar, put it into the heart, send it back out into the world as love. I tried cutting cords. I tried, banishing the energy. I tried accepting the energy. I tried like every energetic tool, mantra, prayer, practice that I had in my arsenal, I was trying. And nothing was working. I was just having to kind of endure that I would be in the middle of a really intimate, comfortable conversation that I felt super safe, felt really good. There was no indication of like, I wasn't feeling threatened. Just, usually in like very intimate, like beautiful conversations, and it would just come out of nowhere, just a violent, intrusive thought. So intrusive is such a good word for that because it felt fucking intrusive. You're just like, whoa, where did that come from? Anyone who suffered intrusive thoughts will know what I'm talking about. So fast forward probably 6 months, it may have even been 9 months into experiencing that, I finally realized, I was like, I think I need support to move through this. This is actually quite taxing on my system and draining to be constantly managing this, like holding this internally. So I finally shared with my husband, and my husband was like, oh my God, I'm so like, baby, I'm so sorry you've been experiencing that. Like, why didn't you tell me? And I was like, yeah, that's really weird that I didn't tell you, like, or anyone. Why didn't I tell you? And then I kind of thought about it, and I realized, my brother has been institutionalized for mental health, psychotic breaks, schizophrenia. I've watched him lose his mind. I've spent a lot of time, as many of you listening know, on visitation in mental health facilities. And so I don't know, there's just a part of me that's like, if you're experiencing something strange, you just keep it to yourself, which is not the way to go at all. And I've also had bad experiences, like when I was 19 and I first tried to seek help. I went to my GP. I was really struggling. I was in a very abusive relationship. And I recognized that I needed help, and I was super overwhelmed, barely sleeping, working like 4 jobs at university, just like didn't know what I needed, but knew I needed help. Went to my GP, and because of my family history of pretty severe mental health, my mum has also experienced some pretty intense mental health and addiction issues. So my GP referred me to a psychiatrist, which is very different than a therapist. A psychiatrist is essentially someone who works with diagnosing mental disease and also writing prescriptions, versus a therapist who really is there to kind of support you in unpacking and healing. And they're just different, very different. So I didn't know. Writes me a referral for a psychiatrist. Go to the psychiatrist office. It's like, I'm terrified. I'm like literally shaking. I go into the psychiatrist's office and I'm literally shaking, like so scared. I don't know why I was so scared, but I was super scared, like super teary, just like fucking terrified. And she was so brutal. She's like, why are you here? You don't need to be here. You're wasting my time. I literally didn't even talk. And I was just like, I'm so sorry. And I burst into tears and got up and ran out of her office and never tried to get help again, until I've been working with my mentor, therapist, spiritual teacher, and I have another spiritual teacher. I have, people that I work with now, but it took me a long time to actually, one, find people that could hold me and, find the right people to work with, but also move past that kind of traumatic event of reaching out for help, really needing help, and really not feeling supported. Having that was just, I remember being on the bus back from that appointment and just being like, and I just shut that out of my mind, and I never thought about it again. And I never told anyone that happened. And that was the memory that actually came back when Patrick was like, why didn't you tell me? And I was like, interesting. So anyway, from there, I was like, I need healers, I need body workers, I need support. I've tried for 9 months to deal with this on my own. I have a lot of experience in working with things, but it's like a masseuse. Even if you're a really great massage therapist, you can't get your own back. I was like, I just need help. And that was a really big part, an important learning lesson. And if I look back to the intention that I set of wanting to see and experience what I need to see and experience to become the best mother possible, receiving support, anyone who is a mother is going to let you know that is super essential. You have to learn how to ask for help, because you can't do it all. You need support. It takes a village. So it makes sense. Went through this initiation, had a really incredible dear brother of mine hold actually a psilocybin ceremony for me via distance and do sound healing, and kind of just, I was like, I need to go back into medicine space and find out what's still here. So I had this really powerful experience where I could feel that this was an initiation and that this energy was actually a teacher. But I didn't get much more than that. And they kind of softened. And then over time, they just went away. But I never really fully understood more than just, this is some kind of a teacher or some kind of an initiation. That's all I got. And I was like, okay, good enough for me. The really powerful thing from that ceremony that I did get was the medicine and spirit kind of communicating with me and saying are you a healer, or do you just want to work with energy that's already pretty and packaged up and healed? because obviously the energy that I was experiencing was really not that. And so, spirit and the medicine was like, so are you a healer or what? And I was like, I mean, I guess. and so the medicine and spirit was like, well, you're going to encounter some energy that isn't pretty, isn't packaged up, that's kind of scary. And your job is to be the adult in the room. And for those of you that have listened to my very first podcast ever, where I talk about all sorts of supernatural experiences that I had, that phrase will make more sense to you than most. But yeah, be the adult in the room and, essentially remember who and what you are in truth. And the medicine and spirit was like, when a vibration is higher than yours, you can feel that. And I'm like, yes, then you can relax and assimilate into that frequency. You also know when a frequency is not where your frequency is. So hold steady. Don't assimilate to that frequency. Just hold steady. Be the adult in the room. And the message was that your love is the lantern that you carry into every dark space. You can be walking through a hell realm. You could be walking through the darkest night. You have light within you, and it is the love. And it was just this image of me reaching into my heart and pulling out a lantern and walking through the darkness. And the spirit and the medicine said to me, when you encounter an energy, turn fully towards it. Don't try and avoid. Don't try and get the fuck away from me. You're a fucking healer. You turn towards that energy and you say, hi, I'm love. Who are you and why are you here? And just stand in love, stand in the certainty of who you are and what you are and how you serve and why you've come. And that's all you have to do. And so that was very comforting. And that was, really, really, really helpful. So moving out of that, as I said, I didn't totally get rid of the intrusive thoughts. They just, over time, eventually faded away. And of course, I was doing at that time, started doing trauma therapy and really deep somatic, physical body, somatic release work, acupuncture, was fixing my gut. I was doing all the things from all the different angles. So fast forward a little bit further, I'm sitting in a temescal. And I'm starting to just put all these pieces together. And I'm sitting in this temescal after the next time that I sit with Aya. And that was in March of last year. So I guess, October 2021 until March 2023. So I'm not great at maths, but I think that's over a year. I try to be kind of sparing personally with ayahuasca, at least a year between, sometimes more. And obviously people can be called to go a bunch in a row. For me, that's just how it's kind of worked out. So sat in some ceremonies and, had beautiful, profound realizations. But the next day I'm sitting in the temescal, and sweat lodges are super powerful for me. Heat, fasting, silence, all of these other ways to alter consciousness and do ritual, to me are as powerful as psychedelics. I think medicine work is so powerful and has been such a big part of my journey, but fasting, silence, sweat lodges, heat, these types of rituals for me have been as profound. And so I'm sitting and I'm sweating, and I start to realize and remember the intention that I had set for that dieta around becoming a mother. And I started to realize that through this violent, intrusive thoughts, I had been purging violence from my system. And I was being shown that it was all the way through my lineage, this endless cycle as a human being of violence and retribution that just gets passed down and down and down. And whether it's acted out, through violence physically or through acted onto, whether my ancestors, my great grandmother was acting out violence on herself, the way she spoke to herself, my ancestors, this violence that until someone is willing to feel it, see it, and love it into the light, transform it, alchemize it, be with it, that it's going to be carried through the line. And so it just dawned on me. I was like, I've been purging violence from my system that I have inherited from my lineage. And I'm doing that so that I don't have to burden the child, the soul that chooses to come in through me with, I can lighten the load at least a little. There's always going to be a karmic burden. There's always going to be, some burden from the lineage, but if we're consciously working on this, we can lighten the load. And it's my belief that if we lighten the load, then we can call in a soul who's here to work with the collective load and can get some of the collective load lighter versus having to just solely focus so much on their individual and ancestral load, karmic load. So I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. And it kind of brought me some peace to just realize, to feel that there was like a meaning to the madness, that there was a reason that I'd gone through that experience and had to like experience that for quite a long time. And so that kind of came through. Thought that was interesting. The other thing that happened in that first dieta, and again, if you've listened to the last solo episode, you'll hear me talk all about it. I shook for 8 hours straight. What I don't think I even brought up in the episode because I didn't know at the time. And later in Ibiza last June, so March, I sat in that Temescal, had the realization like, wow, I've been purging violence from my system. June, I sit with a Kundalini activation specialist. Rachel and I, if you've listened to the podcast, you know Rachel, my best girlfriend. Sometimes we teach together. We had this activation. And we, again, this was like better than any drug. I fucking blasted into the stratosphere, bawling my eyes out, shaking, crying, laughing. And as I entered that space, it was familiar. I was like, oh, this is what was happening to me. It was Kundalini activation. That's what I was experiencing. It felt less violent than what I experienced in the ayahuasca ceremony. That was extremely violent Kundalini activation, but I was like, oh, I know what this is. So again, another puzzle piece. And in that Kundalini session, my great-grandmother, who I had the pleasure of meeting, she died at 99, Irish, Kitty. She was a wild woman, which for her time is really cutting edge. She was wild, yeah. Used to love playing poker and dressing up and being really cheeky. Would, go over just in a kimono with nothing else on to the neighbors and pretend to be a different character and just like stir up craziness. I'm like, that's definitely my great grandma. We are for sure related. My mum has memories of like playing poker with her when she would look after her and she would like let them smoke cigarettes and drink shandy and stuff. They're like 9. You wouldn't do that these days, but she was a wild woman. And so she came to me. My grandmother, her daughter, Kathleen, who I was very, very close with, came, and my mother came. My mother obviously still in the flesh, but their spirits all came to me. And I had this moment of reclaiming, despite the pain and, the disconnection I've sometimes experienced with my family, and having to work through that and acknowledge that and honor that, to then actually truly be able to forgive. But what I realized in that session, I was like, there have been times where I might have judged my parents, my family, and felt like, why can't you do the work kind of thing? Just felt like if you just went to therapy, if you just, we could have avoided, quote unquote, some of this pain, or like just wanting more from them. And there was a little judgment in there of like, well, I did it, but what I realized in this session, I was like, every seed I have that I've watered into full bloom, the life that I have, who I am as a person, the business that I run, the relationships I get to have, this wild, delicious, incredible existence that I'm living, these women carried these seeds. I may have watered them, but I wouldn't have the seeds if they didn't carry them for me. And it really hit me for the first time that I am everything I am because of these women, because of my line. And I just laid there bawling my eyes out, really kissing each of their feet, coming to this deep state of gratitude and having this powerful healing in my matrilineal line, and realizing, I'm everything I am. And I was saying, I'm the proud great-granddaughter of Kitty, I'm the proud granddaughter of Kathleen, and I'm the proud daughter of Karen. And I was just repeating that over and over again and like reclaiming my pride to be theirs and to carry their blood. And I think that anyone who's listening who's struggled with family stuff, like that can be hard. It can be, and you can't fake it. I couldn't have tried to do that any sooner. That just emerged inside of me. And it was so, so powerful, in fact, that Rachel and I decided that we wanted to go and do our Kundalini activation training. We were like, this is our medicine. We're at home in this space. We both were just like, we've been already working with this energy for years. This is not new. We just didn't know there was a a name for it, you know. We're like, this is, you know, the mistress that has no name. And ultimately, like, Kundalini is just life force energy. And Rachel and I are always like, we're energy witches. Like, that's our medicine. We work with energy. And anyone who's come on retreat with me, you know, I was speaking to some of my clients this last week, and they were like, when I got back from retreat with you, like, I was high for weeks in the same way that I'm high after getting back from medicine work. And it's like, yeah, it's energy medicine. It's altering consciousness just with a different medicine. It's not ayahuasca, it's energy. So yeah, it's so powerful. It's so powerful, so beautiful, so feminine. It's yeah, really, really delicious. It's my favorite way to get high, that's for sure. So we do this training. I have no idea what the fuck to expect, honestly. But while we're there and I'm shaking and I'm having these crazy activations, it fully occurred to me, yes, this is exactly what happened to me back in Dieta. And they started to explain how when you're activating someone, you're helping to wake up the energy that's already within all of us, right? You're not giving them anything, you're not taking anything away. But the Ida and the Pingala are the nadis, or the energy channels that weave up through the central channel, masculine and feminine, all the way to the crown. And you're helping the energy to move and activate through those channels, and it's more gentle. And they said, if you have a spontaneous Kundalini awakening, it will shoot up through the central channel, the Sushumna, and it will be very violent. And I was like, that's what fucking happened to me. I was like, holy shit, that was it. I didn't realize. And when they shared that, it finally clicked. And again, I'd been having these like puzzle pieces. I had the realization in the Temazcal that I was purging violence from my system. But when they described that, I realized in an instant that all of the trauma in my root, all of the violence I've experienced in this lifetime and others that I've carried in my own body, and that has been done to this physical body, but that has also been done to all the women in my line and passed through me, into me, that sits at my root, that survival center, got shot up into my brain. And hence those violent, intrusive thoughts. And when I expressed this to my spiritual teacher, Deb, I said, you know, I think this is what happened to me. And she said, yes, absolutely. She said, that's why usually when you're being prepared to experience Shaktipat, like before a teacher would give you the type of transmission that people are kind of just, you know, a bit lackadaisical with these days, before you would receive the transmission, you'd have to do all this third eye work so that it was open enough and you know, like able to hold and work with and move through and clear what was going to get moved up into those upper chakras. And then I spoke to my therapist about it, who's also like super witch, spiritual, just amazing human. And she was like, yeah, you know, sadly, most of the other energy centers you can heal in other ways, but if you need to heal root trauma, you have to re-experience it. And I was like, oh, brutal. So just all these puzzle pieces, and it took me 3 years to put together, and all from this simple, what I thought intention of like, yeah, show me, teach me, tell me what I need to see and experience in order to become the best mother possible. Oh shit. So grateful for that. Whoa, what a wild 3 years it's been. One day, Patrick and I will feel ready to share what happened last year that is beyond anything I just shared, and had both of us really have to experience our trauma on a really deep level to heal the deepest foundations of our union, to be able to come together. Like, yeah, most of the couples that I know that are in really divine union have to go through just some kind of rupture period where everything falls apart and you have to stand in the fire together karmically and choose each other again. And it's fucking brutal, but I wouldn't change it, because where we are now as a couple, the way that we love each other, the depth that we love each other, it's really hard to feel truly loved unless someone has seen you when you are truly broken and have nothing to give. You can't give them anything. It's like they say, you know, notice how someone treats the people who can't give them anything. there'll be times when life will bring you to your knees and you won't even be able to give your partner or the people you love anything, and vice versa. And you have to really recognize or choose love, and choose to love someone when they're broken, and choose to love someone when they can't give you anything, and choose love in the darkness with no guarantees. So yeah, I realize I'm being a little bit cryptic, but I don't think, we're not ready to fully share what happened there yet, but we will. But just to say, there was even more healing to be done just when you think, yeah, and of course it doesn't end, right? This is the game that never ends. It just goes on and on, my friends. So you better learn how to enjoy it. May as well put your hands up for the roller coaster ride. I do think some of us choose to digest more calmer or not. You can choose to engage more fully with that transformational process. And there are seasons, right? Like I had some very easeful seasons before this last 3 years where I was just fucking cruising. Like, yeah, I'm doing my healing work, but like life was expansive. Life was beautiful and easy. And there's been a lot about life that's been beautiful and easy even still through this period. And I'm grateful for that, so that I could have the space and time to do such deep trauma work. Last year I had a lot of sexual trauma resurface, memories, things that I'd suppressed, just didn't, I had sexual trauma that I knew about, quote unquote, or was consciously working with, and then a whole bunch of unconscious stuff that surfaced. So yeah, it was like a real Russian doll. And I just didn't know when I was going to get to neutral ground and be able to breathe again. But we're here. Gratefully, probably middle of last year, just before our love rager and our union celebration, got to neutral ground. And yeah, so 2 other things I'll share. I'm sure I'm going to share more than 2 things, but I began communicating with the spirit of our unborn child in July of last year. And I went into ceremony, and it was very funny because before I went into ceremony with Patrick, I had got a message from a friend that said, in the Brazilian jungle, and those of you that know or have been following my journey for a long time, I used to live in Brazil. I have a very deep connection with Brazil. I speak Portuguese. My first husband was Brazilian. Whole other lifetime. So I've never been to the Amazon in Brazil. I've been to Brazil many times, traveled all over, never been to the Amazon. I've always known that time would come and how important that would be. It's like before I went to India, I always knew that would be a life-changing. I didn't know when it was going to happen, but when I would go, that it would alter my life forever. And I went at the end of October 2022. And that was actually the catalyst that kicked off all the dark night of the soul shit that me and Patrick went through. So as predicted, my life was never the same again. And I could feel it. And I have that same feeling about when I go to the Brazilian Amazon. So anyway, get a message from a girlfriend saying there's a ceremony being held by all female medicine holders and wisdom keepers from the First Nations people in the Brazilian Amazon. And I was like, what a fucking incredible opportunity. Wow. And we'd been like, well, we're probably going to start trying for a baby, after the wedding. And I was like, oh man, but maybe I need to go to the Amazon. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I need to think about it. Like, let me take it into ceremony. So we sit in ceremony. We're in deep space, really, really deep space. And all of a sudden this soul comes to me. And you'd think it's going to be some like really deep, spiritual, mystical message. No, this soul comes to me and goes, Mum, stop dicking around. I was like, hello, excuse me? Stop dicking around. Tra-la-lying at Burning Man. You're not going to the Amazon. Quit it. You are making me. Like, get to it. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I just had this overwhelming worry wash through my system. And I'm not a warrior. That's not I have plenty of mental neuroses. Whoa. That's not a big one of mine. And I just had this like overwhelming feel of worry. And I said to this soul, I said, but what if you come in and you die young, like you die early? And the soul was like, yeah, maybe so, maybe not. And I was like, no. But what if you come in and you become a drug addict? And the soul was like, maybe so, maybe not. And I was like, oh no, is this our contract? Am I just going to worry about you all the time? And the soul was just like, probably. And I was like, oh man. And that was that. And the soul showed me that they showed me the wedding, our love rager that was going to be happening the next month, and that they were going to be there, and their energy was going to be there. And then that was that. And I just came out and I told Patrick, and we just laughed. We thought, well, it sounds like our kid, as spunky as ever, bossy as ever. And fast forward a few months after that, Rachel and I go teach in Ibiza. We teach our retreat, come home, and Patrick and I try for the first time. We make love, and as we're making love and as he is inseminating me, I believe that's the soul is called in at the moment that the sperm meets the egg, and that's part of Vedic tradition. And there's a ripple of energy sent out through the cosmos, and all the souls that align with that frequency of that union and of the union in general, but also the union in that moment, the love that's being created through that act, calls in a specific frequency. So I was like, I want to be real specific about the soul that I'm calling in. So as Patrick's doing the deed and reaching his heights, I'm calling out loud. I'm calling in a soul that is here to serve and receive, enjoy, love, ease, and peace. And I just said it 5 or so times. And then, went and put my legs up the wall, as you do. And then that was that. I didn't think of it. Sat in another ceremony, did not think or realize I was pregnant. And in that ceremony, the soul came to me again. And this time it was so beautiful. It was red. It was red and orange and yellow. And it was so vast. And it was just a feeling. It was just so vast and beautiful. And I just wept. And I was like, thank you so much for choosing us as your parents. Like, wow, we can't wait to meet you. No idea I was pregnant. So it turns out I'm pregnant. And at this point, I am 13 weeks pregnant. So I don't know by the time you hear this how far along I'll be. I haven't announced it publicly yet, but I guess this is that. We're having a little boy in August. Oh, and what a journey it's been to becoming this little one's mum. And they clearly didn't want to waste time. They came in immediately. They were like, I've been fucking hanging out waiting for 3 years. You've been doing this ceremony, doing that, clearing this, clearing that. I just thought it was funny that soul that was like, hurry up, mum, stop dicking around. Like, yeah, they were ready to go. So yeah, my God, it's been a fucking journey. It's been a journey, and it will continue to be an initiation. I'll leave it there because it's been nearly 33 minutes. It's a long time to talk to yourself. But yeah, there's a little update of what the heck has been going on for me in the last 3 years or so since we did a solo episode. Lots of immense healing work, being prepped to become a mother, and this little being, whatever soul this soul is, really worked Patrick and I. This soul was like, get your shit together, honey. Like, if you want me to come down, you better clean up some of that karmic burden. I am not taking on none of that shit. You better clear it up, honey. Put us to work. So yeah, I'm excited to meet this being. Feeling grateful. Entering the second trimester. The first trimester was pretty brutal, not going to lie. It's a fucking portal. But that's for another episode. I'll talk about that, being in the void for real, not just the concept of the void, some intellectual idea of entering emptiness, but like truly entering the dark night and resting there. Wild, wild, wild. So that's it, y'all. I'm growing a human. Send me your blessings, please, please. We're doing well. We're healthy. We're happy. And we're excited to meet this being. So thanks for being on the journey. Thanks for being on the ride. More soon.